Miriam, for giving me the opportunity to say a word of thanks on behalf of Rabbi Sacks' family. For the last 2 years since my brother's passing, I've had the privilege of participating in a reading group, which has been reading through my brother's books in sequence. Most of the participants in this reading group are actually in this room at the moment and will be presenting papers at the conference. One of the things that strikes any reader of Rabbi Sacks' books is his range of intellectual engagement. My brother was, of course, first and foremost a rabbi, a religious teacher and a religious leader. That's how he saw his role, and that should always be borne in mind when reading his books. But he was also trained in philosophy, as well as having a deep fascination, beginning long before his university years, with politics, economics, and social policy. My brother, throughout his professional career, thought and wrote about these topics: morals and markets, political power and its limits, family and community. And if his thinking led him into realms with which he had no previous familiarity, he took the trouble to read and learn, whether it was history, psychology, sociology, evolutionary theory. He was equally at ease quoting Maimonides or Milton, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin or Isaiah Berlin. His interest in history and politics spanned continents, the UK and Israel, of course, but my brother also had an abiding fascination with and a respect for the American political tradition. It's therefore appropriate and fitting that this conference brings together scholars from a range of academic fields and a range of geographical locations too. From the various fields of Jewish studies, of course, but also philosophy, education, political and social studies, from the UK and the US, as well as from Israel. It is also appropriate and fitting that this conference, the first academic conference to be devoted to Rabbi Sacks' thought in all its range and scope, is taking place in Israel, and in particular at Bar-Ilan University. My brother's deep connection to and love of this country is well known and not something on which I need elaborate. It was a love that dated back to his first visit here with my late father shortly after the Six-Day War, and was nurtured by the many, many visits he paid to the country in the decades that followed, including a stay of several months before taking up office as Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom. He took great pride in the fact that his great-grandfather of Aryeh Leib Frumkin was one of the founders of Petach Tikva, and he was proud of the fact that his brothers, now all 3 brothers, live in Israel. He was a passionate and eloquent defender of Israel against the scourge of anti-Zionism, which he diagnosed rightly as the new anti-Semitism. Rabbi Sacks also had a strong connection with Bar-Ilan University, as we've been hearing already, and was awarded an honorary doctorate by the university in 2004. 3 years prior to that, in 2001, he was invited by Bar-Ilan University to participate in a public dialogue entitled Israel, Dreams and Reality with Amos Oz. That event, incidentally, was organized by one of the organizers of the present conference, Professor Jonathan Reinhold. In that dialogue, Rabbi Sacks called for the creation in Israel of, quotes, a Jewish public culture, a deeply rooted, wide-ranging and open conversation. Amos Oz, for his part, spoke of the vital importance of the Hebrew language as a culturally unifying force within the Jewish world. At that time, few, if any, of Rabbi Sacks' books had been translated into Hebrew. Now, thanks to the great work of Koren Publishers and its director Matthew Miller, a growing number of my brother's books have been translated into Hebrew, and as a result are starting to enter the public culture. The Israeli public discourse around questions of ethics and social policy, religion and politics. His books are now being read by the Israeli public, religious and non-religious alike, by presidents and prime ministers. Though it is not the purpose of this conference, it would be a happy consequence if my brother's writings were to become an even more familiar part of the Israeli public conversation. Rabbi Sacks's voice, the voice of an uncompromisingly orthodox rabbi who believed in the vital importance of education in the sciences and humanities, and who warned against the dangers of mixing religion and politics. His is a voice that urgently needs to be part of the public conversation, especially in Israel, especially now. This, as I said, is not the purpose of this conference. The purpose of this conference is, of course, to stimulate engagement with my brother's writings within the academic and scholarly community. And to this end, the organizers have done a splendid job, as I said a moment ago, in bringing together scholars from a range of disciplines and from across the globe. It remains for me, therefore, to thank, on behalf of Rabbi Sacks's family, Bar Ilan University for hosting this conference and making it possible, the conference organizers, Dr. Miriam Feldman-Kay and Professors Hanoch Ben-Pazi and Jonathan Reinhold, and their administrative team, who clearly put in an immense amount of work into making this conference possible. And last but not least, of course, the participants themselves who will be presenting papers at the conference. We look forward to a fascinating and enlightening conference. Thank you.